I wired $60,000 with one click, no contract, no conditions, because family, I thought, doesn't need paperwork. That was before I opened the envelope that erased me. The transaction took less than a minute. I remember because I stared at the confirmation screen for a while after hitting submit, waiting for some kind of emotional reaction. Relief? Gratitude? Instead, it was just silent. The room was too quiet, like the air hadn't caught up with what had just left my account. But I told myself I was doing the right thing. They were my parents. The house was falling behind. And I could afford it, couldn't I? 2 days earlier, my mother had called with panic in her voice. Not the performative kind she used when Lena misplaced her phone or forgot to pay rent again, but real, low-pitched urgency. "The mortgage is past due. The bank called," she whispered like the walls were listening. "They said the house will be flagged for repossession next month. I didn't know it had gotten this bad." I should have asked more questions. I should have paused. But instead, I opened my banking app, wired the money, and called her back. "It's done," I said. She sounded surprised, like she hadn't expected me to fix it that fast, or maybe she had. A week later, I pulled up into their driveway like I always did on Saturdays. The 2-story brick house looked exactly the same, the front porch still leaning slightly, the rose bushes still half alive, despite my mother's endless battles with aphids. The place I had practically funded for the last 5 years still smelled like my childhood. Lemon polish, lavender candles, and something faintly burnt from a long-forgotten oven. "Can you take a look at this for me?" my mom said, handing me a messy stack of papers before disappearing into the backyard, with her gardening gloves and a tray of Workit fertilizer. I took the bundle into the dining room and set it on the table. At first, I sorted through it mindlessly. Utility bills, tax documents, receipts from hardware stores where I'd paid for tiles and gutters. Then I saw it. A thick cream-colored envelope, the kind you don't see unless someone died or planned to. It was labeled in bold, estate plan and will. I froze. Not because I was snooping, I told myself, but because someone needed to be the adult. Someone always had. I unfolded the contents slowly. My name was on the cover page, Sierra Maddox, listed as one of the daughters. But the moment I reached the distribution of assets section, something shifted. My eyes scanned the lines once, then again. Everything. The house, the car, the savings, even the antique jewelry passed down from my grandmother, was left to Lena. Every single thing. Not a mention of me. Not even a footnote. Not a contingency clause. Just one vague line near the end. "We thank Sierra for always helping the family." I laughed. Not the funny kind. The sharp, dry kind that scrapes the back of your throat. It echoed in the dining room like something sacred had been broken. Suddenly, every overnight drive through snow to bring them medication, every weekend I spent replacing roof shingles instead of resting, every holiday I paid to keep the lights on, reduced to a courtesy sentence. I clenched the paper, my knuckles whitening. My chest felt tight, but it wasn't grief, it was clarity. A terrifying kind. Footsteps behind me. My mother re-entered the house, humming softly to herself. When she saw me standing there, holding the will, she froze like I'd caught her in a crime. "Oh, that. I didn't realize it was still in there." I wasn't just left out. I was erased, like I'd never existed in their version of this family. It's strange how silence doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly. Like water under a door, it moves quietly across the floor of your life until you realize everything around you is soaked. That's how the week felt after I found the will. I didn't storm out that day. I placed the papers back in the folder, tucked it exactly where she left it, and walked to the door without slamming it. No yelling, no tears, just vacancy. They didn't follow. No one called, no one messaged. I kept waiting for the inevitable, a phone call, a long text with half-baked apologies, maybe even Lena showing up with excuses. But there was nothing. For 7 days, I lived in a vacuum. At work, I smiled at clients. At night, I stared at my ceiling until sleep forgot I existed. My apartment, usually a place of quiet comfort, now buzzed with everything I wasn't saying. And then, on the 8th day, I drove back to the house. I told myself it was for closure. To ask, gently, directly, with calm logic, how they'd come to such a choice. But as I pulled up to the driveway, I already knew. There would be no answer that made sense. Patricia opened the door wearing a lilac sweater I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago. "You're early," she said, like I was here for brunch. I stepped inside without replying. The living room was dim, heavy with stillness. Dust clung to the blinds. The couch sagged more than I remembered. Howard sat in his usual spot, holding a mug, staring at nothing. He looked like a man waiting for a commercial break that never came. I stood there a moment, not sure who to look at first. Then I spoke. Why was I removed? Patricia blinked, caught between blinking too fast or too slow. "Honey, don't make this bigger than it is. It's literally a will. You made it very clear who matters." She sighed, moved to adjust a pillow that didn't need adjusting. "You're already stable. You have a career, your own place. Lena's still finding her footing." Howard cleared his throat. "We assumed you'd understand. You've always been strong." I let those words hang in the air like smoke. "Strong," I repeated. "So strong you didn't even think I'd need to be acknowledged?" Patricia stepped closer. "Sierra, this wasn't meant to hurt you. It's just, Lena needs more right now." "Then give her everything," I said. "That's what the will says, doesn't it?" My voice wasn't cold, it wasn't loud, it was simply done. Howard looked down at his coffee. Patricia blinked at me, but didn't speak. I waited 5 seconds, then 10. No one said my name, no one said sorry. I nodded once, small and sharp, and walked out. This time, they didn't watch me leave. Back home, I removed their contact group from my favorites list. I turned off the notifications for the joint bank account. I moved the folder of shared passwords from family to archive. These were all quiet actions, invisible, but every click felt like peeling a layer of myself free from something sticky and old. 3 days passed, then 5. On the 6th day, I got a message from Patricia. "Mortgage taxes due Monday. Could you help?" I stared at it for a full minute, almost laughing. There it was. No mention of what happened, no acknowledgement of the will. Just a casual request, like I was still the family accountant, still the emergency fund with a heartbeat. I typed 2 words. "Ask Lena." I almost hit send, but paused, then added, "She owns the house now, remember?" I set my phone down, chest oddly light, not triumphant, just clean. That night, I made pasta for one and watched the sky turn violet through my kitchen window. I didn't feel like a daughter. I didn't feel like a villain. I just felt like a woman taking back the parts of herself no one noticed were missing. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Lena. "You know I can't handle all this. Why are you being so cold?" They thought I would stay silent. They were wrong. I was just waiting for the truth to speak louder than guilt. It was almost midnight when I finally opened the old dashboard of my abandoned blog. Dusty login, outdated theme, unread comments from 2 years ago. I stared at the blinking cursor in the post editor, the white screen daring me to type something I couldn't take back. But I wasn't afraid anymore. The silence had rotted into something unbearable. It wasn't just grief. It was injustice, calcified into bone. And if no one else was going to name it, I would. I typed the title first. "When $60,000 isn't enough to earn a name in the will," and then I told the story. No metaphors, no softened corners, just the facts. How my parents had called in May, panicked about losing their house. How I wired $60,000 from my own savings. No questions, no hesitation. How I found the will a week later and read the lines that erased me. How Lena, the daughter who never paid a bill, inherited everything while I got a polite thank you sentence in fine print. I didn't embellish. I didn't accuse. I posted screenshots. The transfer confirmation, the notarized estate plan with Lena's name, and mine conspicuously missing, the utility bills all under my name. I even included the first message from my mom asking me to help again with mortgage taxes, sent days after my quiet exit. I wrote for 4 hours, pausing only to sip cold tea and reread each paragraph like a deposition. When I finally hit publish, the apartment felt quieter than ever. At 4:03 a.m., the post went live. By 4:45, it had 4 comments and 1 share. By noon, 33. By midnight, over 200. Maya called the next morning. "You really did it," she said, her voice a mix of awe and something close to relief. "You finally said it out loud." I hadn't even told her I'd posted it, but she knew me too well. She came over that evening with coffee and her laptop. "It's moving fast," she said, scrolling. "I saw someone from your high school comment. Said Lena used to brag she'd get the whole house." I blinked. "Seriously?" "Yep, it's under a thread where people are comparing notes on golden child syndrome." Your post hit a nerve. Within 48 hours, the screenshots were everywhere. Subreddits, Twitter threads, Instagram reels. Strangers weighed in, outraged. Some shared their own stories of silent sacrifice and erased worth. A woman in Texas commented, "Same thing happened to me. Paid for my parents' retirement. My brother got the deed." Another said, "This is why I keep receipts. All of them." I didn't reply to most of them. I just read, watched. My parents hadn't responded publicly yet, but I knew they had seen it. My aunt called me in the afternoon, asking what was going on and if I really meant to go this far. I told her this wasn't far. This was just the truth, finally spoken aloud. That night, as Maya was packing up, she paused in the doorway. "This blog, it's not just about them anymore." I nodded. "It's about me, finally taking up space in my own story." My phone rang an hour later. "Mom." I let it buzz 4 times before I answered. Her voice snapped the second I said hello. "You're tearing this family apart, Sierra. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I leaned back in my chair, fingers brushing the worn keys of my laptop. "I didn't tear anything," I said evenly. "You did that when you chose who mattered on paper." There was a long silence on the line. I didn't fill it. For once, I let her sit with the weight of her own choices. She hung up first. The apartment felt strangely steady afterward, not peaceful, just aligned. For the first time, the silence felt earned. I was halfway through reading another wave of comments when a knock echoed at my door. Firm. No pause. I hesitated. Neighbors never knocked that late. I opened it slowly. A man stood on the other side in a charcoal gray blazer, holding a small leather folder. Familiar eyes, deeper lines than I remembered. His voice was low, careful. "Miss Maddox, I think it's time we talked." I wasn't just overlooked. I was replaced. And not because I failed, but because I gave too much. The cafe was almost too quiet for this kind of meeting. A soft jazz track hummed in the background, the kind of music you only notice when you're trying not to fidget. The light through the window was warm and slow, pouring onto the honey-colored table like someone had spilled sunlight on purpose. I sat across from Mr. Crane, the man who had helped my parents draft their will. He looked older than I remembered, grayer around the temples, thinner in the face, but his voice was steady, practiced, a lawyer's tone, even when no one was recording. Maya sat next to me, quiet but alert. Her phone rested on the table, screen dark, recording app running just in case. Mr. Crane adjusted his cufflinks and leaned slightly forward. "I want to be clear that I'm not violating attorney-client confidentiality by meeting you," he said, "but I did think you had a right to know certain things, especially now." I folded my hands in my lap. "Go ahead." He slid a manila folder across the table. "This is a scanned draft from April, just before the house situation, I believe." I opened it slowly, and there it was, my name. Clear, typed, impossible to misread. Equal distribution, Sierra Maddox and Lena Maddox. 50-50 split. Real estate, vehicle, savings, jewelry, everything. And then I remembered. Patricia's call about the mortgage came on May 5th. The money left my account on the 6th. I looked up. "And when did the current version get signed?" "May 22nd, he said, almost apologetically. 2 weeks later. Your name was omitted entirely. Lena became sole beneficiary." My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't tremble. I had already suspected it, felt it in the way my mother looked away that afternoon in the kitchen. But seeing it confirmed, printed, dated, official, turned suspicion into steel. Mr. Crane exhaled, folding his hands on the table. They said you were self-sufficient, that Lena needed the house more. Maya leaned in. So you watched them remove the daughter who saved their home just weeks earlier? He paused. I offered my professional opinion. I also reminded them of the original intent, but ultimately, I follow instructions. I nodded slowly, flipping the last page of the April draft. Maya took out her phone and began taking photos. Each page, one by one, carefully framed. As she snapped the final shot, she whispered under her breath, "That's more than enough." Crane lifted his coffee but didn't drink it. "For what it's worth," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "I didn't agree with what they did. You were, quite clearly, their backbone." "Was," I replied, past tense. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he cleared his throat. "I'm not offering legal advice," he said carefully, standing up and collecting his briefcase. "But if someone wanted to contest this, they'd have a very strong case." I watched him adjust his collar, nod politely, and leave through the glass door, swallowed up by the late afternoon sun. I stayed seated. Maya placed the photos in a hidden folder on her phone, then turned to me. "Do you want to pursue this legally?" I shook my head. "Number, I don't want a courtroom. I don't want a house I was only worth until I paid for it." I picked up my mug, the coffee inside untouched and lukewarm. "I don't want the house," I said. "I just want them to feel what it's like to be disposable." They never believed I'd walk away, because I never had. Until now. The rain started just as I stepped out of the elevator, soft and uncertain, like it didn't know if it wanted to commit. Through the glass of the lobby doors, the world outside had gone gray, clouds hanging low, streets dulled to steel. I had been walking home from the art center when I saw it, their van, still parked, still running. I paused in the hallway, heartbeat slowing into something deliberate. I knew what this was before I saw them. The silence from their side hadn't lasted long. Guilt turned to shame, shame to fear, and fear? Fear always came crawling back. Patricia stood near the building entrance, umbrella under one arm, eyes red-rimmed, mascara feathering at the edges. Howard leaned against the wall, his jacket damp at the shoulders, staring at the floor. Lena clutched a thick folder to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her upright. None of them noticed me at first. I stood a few steps back, watching, measuring. When I pushed open the glass door from the inside, all three turned at once. "Sierra," Patricia said, stepping forward. "We didn't mean to ambush you. We just—" Her voice cracked. "We need to talk." I didn't move. "You could have called." "You stopped answering," Lena said quickly. Her voice sounded frayed, half defensive, half desperate. "We didn't know what else to do." Howard looked up for the first time. "The bank's sending someone next week to reassess the property. They said it could be marked for forced sale." "And we're not ready for that," Patricia added. "We just need a little help to get through this quarter. Just one more time." The words hit me like static. So familiar, they were practically part of the air I used to breathe. Just one more time. Lena stepped forward and extended the folder. "I don't understand this," she said, eyes pleading. "Can you talk to the loan officer? You're good at this stuff. I keep getting lost." I looked at the folder but didn't take it. My fingers didn't move. My arms didn't twitch. I had once paid off 3 months of overdue bills without them asking. I had once taken a day off work just to wait on hold with the insurance company. I had once driven through a snowstorm to make sure the heater was working. I had always said yes, and now I stood perfectly still. "No," I said. "I'm not on the deed. I'm not part of this house." Patricia inhaled sharply. "Sierra, please, don't punish us like this. We didn't expect this to spiral." I tilted my head. "You didn't expect to deal with the consequences?" Lena opened the folder and flipped through the pages, as if the right number would make me flinch. "I didn't even know what I was signing. Mom said everything was taken care of. I thought it was temporary." "That's the thing," I replied. "You thought, just like always." I took a single step forward, just enough to let the rain patter softly on the cement outside behind me. "You all thought I'd keep cleaning up, that I'd keep saying yes, because I always did." But this time, I watched you rewrite me out of your legacy after I paid for its survival. Patricia's voice trembled. You're really going to let the house fall apart? I didn't blink. It's not falling apart. It's finally revealing who's been holding it up. The silence stretched. A real one this time. Not the absence of noise, but the vacuum after a collapse. Lena pressed her lips together. She looked down at the folder and back at me. Her hands began to shake. Howard, who hadn't spoken until then, cleared his throat softly. We made a mistake. I stared at him, at the man who had taught me how to ride a bike and later watched me work double shifts without ever asking how I was coping. I exhaled, slow and clean. And then I said it. Then live with it. I used to dream of reconciliation. Now I dream in peace. The first thing I did on September 1st was delete the mortgage app. No ceremony, no second thoughts. One long press, a quiet buzz, and it was gone. The screen felt lighter without it. I unsubscribed from every reminder, the electricity company, the water bill, that ridiculous home maintenance newsletter I used to forward to Patricia. All of it. Gone, like closing a tab you didn't realize had been draining your battery for years. My apartment, once cramped with echoes, now breathed. There were no unpaid invoices in the drawer, no urgent texts buzzing at 11 p.m. There was only me, Maya's laughter in the background, and the hum of life I had finally chosen. My photography studio wasn't much, a converted storage space with exposed pipes and half-painted walls. But the light that poured through the tall windows in the late afternoon was gold, and the way it caught on the unfinished wood made it feel like something holy. Maya helped me hang the final photo for the exhibit. It was called Inheritance, a blurred shot of a crumbling roofline through a rain-streaked window. You could barely tell what house it was unless you knew. You sure about this one as the centerpiece? She asked, stepping back to study it. I nodded. It says everything. The essays had come first, late-night writing sessions where the words bled out of me before I could stop them. I called the collection The Names They Erased. It wasn't about revenge, it was about clarity, about how sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, I saw everything, and I'm done pretending I didn't. The exhibit was quiet. No press, no influencers, just people, some friends, some strangers. A woman in her 60s stood for a long time in front of the piece titled Utility. It was a shot of a shutoff notice beside a coffee mug. She didn't say a word, but when she left, she touched my arm. Maya handed me a glass of cheap champagne. To finally choosing yourself, she said, raising hers. I clinked the rim of mine against hers, and not apologizing for it. Later that night, back at the apartment, I found a letter on my doormat. Blue envelope, familiar cursive. Sierra, I don't know how to start this. I don't know if it's too late. Your father isn't well. Lena's overwhelmed. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking if there's still time to fix this. Mom, I sat with it. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just folded it cleanly in half and placed it in the drawer beside a stack of old film negatives. Things I wasn't ready to develop, but didn't want to throw away. I wasn't angry anymore. I just didn't have the strength to explain my worth to people who measured it in silence and expectation. On the walk home from the gallery the next evening, the streets were still damp from an earlier rain. The city lights cast long shadows on the sidewalk, and the breeze was just sharp enough to remind me fall was coming. I thought of Mr. Crane's words, "You have a strong case." He was right, but I didn't need a case. I had my voice, my story. And my absence from their lives was louder than anything I could have argued in court. As I crossed the small park near my building, I saw it. A wooden bench bathed in golden light, no one sitting on it, completely still. I stopped, lifted my camera, and clicked. The caption came to me before the shutter cooled. Silence, when chosen, is freedom. What was once silence now stands as testimony. The ones who wrote her out of the story were forced to watch as she rewrote the ending, without them. Not through revenge, but through truth, boundaries, and the quiet courage to walk away. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but when it does, it reverberates through everything. Because when someone learns to choose themselves over the roles they were assigned, The world finally sees who truly held it all together.